Another embarrassing first half leads to another Falcons loss. But surprisingly, Dan Quinn didn't get fired at the end of the game. I'll explain on today's show why that might actually be a good thing, at least for now. It's all on the way next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
Bad first half from the Falcons, leading into a little more courageous performance in the second half, coming close to getting back in the game with the Seattle Seahawks. Ultimately, though, the result is the same. Falcons lose again, but somewhat surprisingly, Dan Quinn does not lose his job at the end of the game. That's what we're talking about here today. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon, Chuck Smith. What did you make of everything that went down yesterday? Another slow start, getting shoved off the ball at the line of scrimmage, the Seattle running game doing whatever it wants, a little better performance in the second half, and ultimately Arthur Blank giving a bit of a stay of execution for Quinn, at least for right now. What did you make of it all?
That the Falcons have dipped really low right now because they rallied around fight. We fought to the end. Well, when you get drafted in the NFL, the first thing you got is fight. We know that, so everybody has that. But I want to hear what? Win. I want to hear win. So when I heard they said fight, to me, there's no consolation in we played hard in the second half. And this is what else makes me a little, question some of the things that they're saying as far as mentally, who's really strong in that locker room, that if we would have played in the second half like I've been hearing that every week. So from my standpoint, the fight word just showed me how deep this team has fallen when it comes to the Falcons, what the expectations were.
So I have made it very clear that I think the best move for the Falcons moving forward is to completely clean house, and that didn't happen yesterday. But when it comes to Quinn not getting fired yesterday, I actually believe that's potentially a good thing for Atlanta for now, and I think it's true for three reasons. Over the course of our show, I'm going to try to lay out why I think those three reasons are. You can tell me if you agree or not. I know the commenters will certainly weigh in on both Facebook and YouTube. We'll get a chance to do that. But let's set up the conversation this way. Arthur Blank last night, or I should say yesterday afternoon, after the game was done, he had a chance to speak on what went down. He had a chance to speak on the situation with Dan Quinn, explaining his feelings, why he was not ready to move on from Quinn from right now. What Blank said will largely shape the show here today. So let's start with a little bit of the Falcons owner speaking to reporters after the game. Take a listen to this.
I'm extraordinarily disappointed in the season. Nobody would have anticipated 1-7. The lack of consistency. And today was a prime example of that, down 24-0. If we can just play the second half, we would have won the game, but it doesn't work that way. So we'll take the next couple of weeks during this bye period of time and evaluate where we are. And, whatever decision we have to make will be made for the right reasons for the long term. We certainly have a lot of intelligence on this coaching staff. We have, beside Dan, we have three other head coaches, and we've got, three general managers in the building beyond Thomas, or actually four, including Rich McKay. So, the knowledge base is there, but the performance is not. And this is a performance-driven business. I understand that, and they understand that as well. So we'll continue to look at everything we can and make the right decisions when we have to make them. I'm not bashful about making those decisions. In almost 20 years, I've had to do it almost 5 times now. So it's I understand the responsibility that I have to the fans and to the sponsors and our players and coaches, et cetera, to put a winning team on the field. And we're still committed to that 1,000%. And that's not going to change.
So I think what Blank says there is really interesting. And Chuck, I want to hear your thoughts on the Falcons owner. But it leads to a scenario where, okay, so if Blank steps in and says after the debacle that has been the first half of the season, bye week looming this upcoming weekend, if Blank says, I'm not ready to make this move now, does that mean there's somehow a chance that Dan Quinn could still save his job through all of this? That's what Mark Bradley has written about at the AJC, and I thought Bradley made an interesting point, and I'm curious, as I said before, kind of add this to the debate that we're having. Bradley asking the question of if he's still employed now, does that mean he could somehow be employed beyond 2019? what Bradley writes to the AJC, that if Blank opts not to fire Quinn now, and we just heard him say that's what he's opting for, at least for the moment, is there any way he could not fire him come Black Monday, which falls on December 30th? Probably not, but the trouble, and this is what Bradley says, the trouble with really, really liking the coach, and Bradley made the point earlier in this column, that's what he thinks that Blank does. He likes Quinn. He says the trouble with really, really liking a coach, that an owner might extend the benefit of the doubt where no doubt exists. An owner might go with his heart as opposed to his head. So Mark Bradley asking the AJC, the fact that Quinn's not fired now, does that mean there's a chance he might remain coach beyond the 2019 season? Chuck, what do you think about that?
Well, Brandon, if you remember, I talked about this earlier when the Falcons were struggling. Mm-hmm. Dan Quinn, this is a 50-50 chance to me that he gets fired, but I don't think no matter what happens, and this is my gut feeling, that he gets fired before this entire season. I think Arthur, because he doesn't want to blow this thing up. All right, we already know the Falcons right now are struggling. We already know right now the season is somewhat dead. We already know Dan's on the hot seat. But in my opinion, if the Falcons were to fire Dan Quinn now, the narrative changes. We fired him, who we looking for, or the players quitting. To me, it adds one more negative storyline to it. And I know the Falcons fans want it, and I hear you, and I understand it, because all the expectations. But when it comes to firing him, I believe it's a 50-50 chance. And somewhere along the line, when I'm hearing him talk about the love the players have for Dan and the respect and how he feels about Dan, I don't know if he's willing to roll the dice, but I really believe it's a 50-50 chance, because I think he's going to finish the season, and we'll see what happens also, what he does in the division.
So I think that's interesting, and it would certainly sound like, on the basis of something that Blank said, that he's going to get a chance to coach at least one of those division games. Blank saying in the audio that you heard a moment ago that he is going to take the next couple of weeks, which to me means the bye week plus the New Orleans Saints game at the very least, the first opponent coming off that bye there. However, what I'm going to tell two Falcons fans today is, even though Bradley asked a provocative question of, does this mean that Quinn can still save his job? It sounds like you think there's a chance that he can, at least through the end of the season. I actually don't feel that's the case. Whether it's firing that comes during the season or a firing that comes in the so-called Black Monday, the first week after the season's over with, one way or another, Dan Quinn is not going to be the coach of the Atlanta Falcons in 2020. When you hear Blank speak, and we'll play more of this audio for you throughout the show, one of the reasons why I think that Falcons fans should be okay with not firing Quinn as of now is because I think Blank's words yesterday actually increase the likelihood that when the chopping block takes place, it won't just be Quinn whose neck is on there, so to speak. It's going to be Thomas Dimitroff there as well. I think the big news coming out of yesterday is not so much that Quinn saved his job, but that everything in the organization is not going to be called into question. If Quinn got fired yesterday, then that would, to me anyway, increase the likelihood that maybe Thomas Dimitroff would do again what he did in 2014, which is remain as Falcons GM when one of the coaches that he had been working with was fired. I think by not making that move yesterday, I think it increases the likelihood that the entire house will be eventually cleaned and all of this, and it won't just be Quinn who's gone, it's Thomas Dimitroff there as well. I thought yesterday was a very silent but noticeable really rebuke of the entirety of the organization. This won't just be Quinn who takes the fall for this, I believe. I think it's eventually going to be Thomas Dimitroff as well.
Yeah, and I read something along the way. Excuse me.
Falcons are playing so bad it's got Chuck choked up.
I'm choked up.
That's how bad things have gotten.
That's
Even
my former
Chuck is choked
team.
up.
I'm sorry, man. I'm real choked up. But I read something in the paper that, not in the paper, but the AJC online, about that Thomas Dimitroff won't be a part of the process with the other general managers, when they get to the decision on Dan Quinn to bringing someone in. This is a tough one, though. And to me, because Arthur Blank ultimately has told the fans what their experience should be. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the thing that might get Dan obviously canned earlier. But something that you just said that I haven't thought about, I'll tell you something that might also get him fired if they were to fire Dan. Losing to New Orleans. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about Carolina and New Orleans, to me, are the teams that if Atlanta doesn't compete, especially against the Saints, they come in here as a rival and absolutely shake the Falcons up. To me, that would be the only situation I believe he gets fired
We're
during
going
the season.
to take a lot of your comments on this subject on both Facebook and YouTube. It's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories, and great to have as a part of AJC Falcons News Now, our friends from Miller Lite. Let me say one more thing before we get there. There was something else you heard a moment ago in the Blank audio that I think is really important. Blank uses the word responsibility. He says a responsibility to the fans, to the team itself, to the sponsors, and all of that. This is one of the things that I've always felt like Blank understands in a way that not all ownership groups in the Atlanta sporting scene kind of do. I mean, let's be real here for a moment. You know, Chuck, I'm probably a bigger baseball fan than you are, but one thing you'll see about the Braves ownership, Liberty Media way out in Colorado, this is a faceless, in some cases soulless leadership group that you really have no connection to whatsoever. It's kind of hard to point your finger up at the owner's box and say who the owner of the Atlanta Braves even is. Hawks ownership group, newly in place right now. We don't know a ton yet about Tony Ressler, but prior to that, the old Atlanta Spirit group was really kind of the laughingstock of professional ownership all the way around. Blank has always stood in sharp contrast to the other more recent ownerships in Atlanta, more of a human being than the Liberty Media Group, more functional than the Atlanta Spirit Group prior to Tony Ressler taking over for the Atlanta Hawks. That's always worked to Blank's advantage. I think this is a chance for him to further cement his reputation as an owner who does care about his customers, the fans, as an owner who does care about the Falcon sponsors, as an owner who cares about his ultimate legacy as an owner here. Listening to the concerns that the people who either are ticket buyers or under other circumstances would be ticket buyers, listening to their concerns. I think Blank's got to act here in a bold way to show the just amount of respect for the people who have treated him as a different kind of owner, an owner in the past who has been seemingly more willing to listen. I think Blank's reputation like that is on the line here in this instance. And from that vantage point, I'm very curious to see how he acts.
Well, I know how he's going to act, and he's going to handle himself professionally and not to blow up the organization, because one of the things that we know, this team has still got talent. So he wants to also have an opportunity to also bring in someone else. If he brings someone else, that wants to see how he handles Dan Quinn at the end. But Arthur Blank's reputation, I talked about it a second ago. It's about the fan experience. And coming into next year, the facts will remain that next year, the fan experience is going to be hard pressed for folks to get excited about the Falcons, folks to buy jerseys, folks to, get new fans when it comes to Dan Quinn and ultimately what's happening this year.
Daniel Taylor Terry Locklear on Facebook says, we could have the best coaches and the players. We're still going to lose. Atlanta is cursed. And it's kind of funny. Unfortunately, the gloom and doom of 28-3 still hangs over this organization. Obviously, the Braves dealt with their own version of that.
They've been saying that
for baseball fans.
They've been saying that
saying it for years. It seems easier to say now than it's ever been before. But that's really why this offseason is so important, is because if you can, make the bold hire at coach, if you can put yourself in a position to maximize the draft, if you can kind of clean up some of the salary cap issues that you're dealing with, and we'll get to some more of that here in a moment, if you can show some accountability for players who seemingly have been lacking in accountability, you can change that narrative a little bit, that the Falcons are doing what they can to get out from underneath that 28-3 shadow. This offseason is not necessarily a crisis for the Falcons. It could be an opportunity, and that opportunity could begin as soon as this season. Let's have a conversation about who the next coach should be. Let's have a conversation about the kind of personnel decisions that could put Atlanta into a place of competing sooner rather than later. The great thing about the NFL is, much the same way you can get bad very quickly, you can also turn things around very quickly as well. That's a fun conversation for fans to have. And Blank gets an opportunity soon to usher in that conversation. But that means more than just getting rid of Dan Quinn. I think that requires getting rid of Thomas Dimitroff as well.
You know what? And here's a good comparison. In 96, 97, we got rid of June Jones, 96?
Yeah.
They brought Dan Reeves in. So when June was there, we had personnel. I mean, we had Jamal Anderson, we had Bob Whitfield, we had an incredible offensive line, but we needed a coaching change. We needed a philosophy change because June had kind of lost the locker room. So Taylor Smith cans June Jones, and here comes Dan Reeves. Within 2 years, we're in the Super Bowl. So this is the same kind of team. We always had talent. I'm not blowing the team up, but a change of coaching sometimes can pay big dividends, because I've lived through it, and I saw the difference a talented team can, what they can become just with a change of philosophy and different things that have to do with being a championship team.
Marcus Jackson brings up an interesting point in our Facebook comment section that blank, and we've heard from him before, we'll hear from him some more throughout our program here today that may have dropped a hint, talking about the institutional knowledge that exists in Flowery Branch. Marcus says that he thinks this means that blank will eventually hire from within. I don't know if Marcus meant as the next coach or the next GM, but I think when you are concerned that blank might stick with kind of what he knows as the future personnel director for Atlanta, as a general manager, team president, whatever title you want to get, I think that's a huge mistake. Atlanta has been the worst kind of trade up, pay up type organization. And blank himself has been as guilty of this as anyone, talking way too much publicly about so-and-so needs to be a Falcon for life, and this guy needs to be a Falcon for life, and that guy needs to be a Falcon for life.
Yo.
You can't make everybody Falcons for life in a salary cap league.
You're the first person I heard say that, seriously.
Yeah.
I've always thought that. Because it's like every time someone signs, I remember all the way back to Todd McClure. When Todd retired, he's the Falcon for life, he's going to Ring of Honor. I'm like, come on. I mean, I'm not hating on Todd, but I remember that. He does say that a lot. And, and sometimes that has to do with, Brandon, the commitment. He's a player. I mean, he's a player's owner.
Right.
It takes guys to Scotland. I mean, he used to do that, travels and he had all those different things, but you're right. I mean, it can get you in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, then the next GM for this organization needs to come from outside the organization. It needs to be someone that brings a different voice. And it seems like Rich McKay has, become more influential again. At least that's, the best guess, the read that you get on this from time to time. And listen, a lot of those guys have put Atlanta in a pretty good spot. I mean, they came as close to winning a Super Bowl as you can without actually winning one. So it hasn't been all bad. But when you look at the number of times this team has traded up, the number of times this team has paid up in free agency, including the Julio Jones deal, which they're going to live to regret. As good a player as Julio Jones is, it's a terrible contract. It's going to end up being just a governor on the progress of this organization. The next GM is going to come from outside that sphere of influence, and it's got to be someone who's more interested in trading back, stockpiling draft picks, and more interested in being a lot more judicious about how you use your salary cap dollars.
What I would like to see, and I'm not here. I never call for a guy to get fired. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
That's part of me being a player.
I understand.
I would never call that.
Totally
but let me
understand.
just talk about philosophy. I believe I'd like to see the Falcons bring in someone that has the power to override and have as much power as the coach.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little more power when it comes to that, because, again, we're talking about a coach being a coach, and then these guys really focus on the draft, advanced scouting, all those different things. And I think some of the philosophy has to change when it comes to, like the old school thinking. Hey, let's just be fast. Let's just be athletic. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right now, what's winning the NFL is tough.
Yeah.
Physical guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you rarely hear a guy, well, he's such a great athlete in the NFL no more. You hear what? He's tough. I would like to see someone that can put the right pieces together and draft more on how they can help your team from the standpoint of not worrying about necessarily the short term, but getting guys you can also develop and making the right draft picks, especially when it comes to the O-line and D-line.
Let's get a few more comments here, and I'll do some Facebook, then some YouTube. Jim Daniels says, I've never wanted to fire a coach, but change is necessary. Defense definitely needs a change of perspective, put it mildly, and you saw a lot of this in the first half where defensive linemen getting pushed around at the expense of a Seattle running game. Lots of confusion on goal line plays where they had guys just running wide open a lot. I mean, hard not to look at this and say from a schematic standpoint, from a technique standpoint, Atlanta's not getting the best and the most out of its defense, and that obviously directly goes back to Dan Quinn. I don't revel in having said that because while I don't know Quinn personally, I take other people at their word that he's probably a pretty good guy, but the defense is broken right now. This is among the worst defenses in Falcons' modern history, and I think you'd have a strong case to make that it's the worst defense in the NFL right now.
Right, and it starts with personnel. Personnel, you got to be able to get lined up, and that's been one of the biggest things that the Falcons have struggled with, getting lined up, because the personnel, they get on the field and they absolutely don't know what's happening. But let me go to an angle that no one talks about.
Yeah.
All right, now everybody, if you read anything about the National Football League, the most important people really to the team are the assistants. I mean, let's not see and act like, everything's on Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
You got assistants, in my opinion, that are also letting him down. Yeah. We haven't, and I've talked about the pass rush, and I've been absolutely honest in my opinion on the pass rush. Who's the D-line coach? What is he teaching?
Yeah.
So who's the secondary coach? So I'm just telling you, personnel and things like that, Dan Quinn is not necessarily, he's making the calls, but there are assistant coaches that are also responsible. We keep talking, I love Raheem, and I don't know if Raheem's the fault. I don't know that. But it's not getting done. So I've been a coach in the NFL. The assistants are the one driving everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Q is basically calling plays off of tendencies. So there's someone on the sideline that's handling personnel, and I tell you, it's not Dan Quinn. It's not Dan Quinn, and I mean, again, I don't want to, not saying that Raheem's the issue. I'm just making an example that there's so many other people involved in this process that are assistants that also I feel like are letting Dan Quinn down.
James McCrae on Facebook says, I'm curious to see if you agree with this. The talent's not the problem, he says. Look at the way they play in the second half every week. I know other teams are more relaxed with a big lead, but they're still much better. Just not prepared for any first half. That is purely coaching. Do you agree with that? That when you have a continual pattern of really getting blown out of games, getting down 17 points on the regular in the first half, that's really more about the preparation going into the game, more so than the talent that first of all, coming into the year, most people would have thought Atlanta was a fairly talented team. Blank himself a moment ago said no one expected this team to have the record that it has right now. Do you agree that these first halves, these dismal first halves, are an example of poor coaching on what is otherwise adequate talent?
No.
Okay.
I'm putting this on the players. Y'all know y'all supposed to come out and play hard. I can't, at the end of the day, okay, say Q does make a bad call. Y'all need the ball. But some of the things that we're talking about are tackling. What are we going to do about the tackling? Some of them, even like Deion Jones, gets mashed down with a stiff arm. The guy takes off and gets another 20 yards. To me, they tackle. Dan Quinn almost is the guy who invented the roll tackle. So, no, it's not about scheme. Now, let's look at the personnel. All right, the second guy, okay, Grady Jarrett, he's the stud. He's the guy. He played great. He's having a great season, all right? The second guy who got a sack, I didn't even know his name. Did you? You can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't one of our first-round draft picks. So to me, the personnel, absolutely those guys aren't as talented right now in this scheme.
Yeah.
And this is what I allude to again. I was just talking to you about this. All right, we want to beat up Dan Quinn about the pass rush.
Yeah.
I watched two guys rush just like everyone else. They're lined up in wide pass rush situations, and they're rushing, and they're not getting there. Grady Jarrett lines up in his normal spot, does a side scissors, gets upfield, gets a sack.
Yeah.
So those have to do with the players. Now, we can talk about assistants. Everybody takes some of the responsibility here. But the players, man, what y'all doing, man? Isaiah Oliver, what is it? You tell me. I love Devondre Campbell. Name me one time as far as that's concerned, they're made up some big plays. They haven't. We ain't getting no turnovers.
Yeah.
So to me, the players got to take some responsibility and stop saying we had we needed to hear that from Julio. Well, you need to hear it from yourself, man.
Yeah, Rico Render says the defense gotten worse. Dan Quinn's just not the answer for Atlanta. He also says Quinn's always talking about how much talent's on the team. It ain't a lot of talent on the Falcons, he says. Some of the guys have to go. And we're going to get more to the trade, deadline talk coming in a moment. But, you've already seen Atlanta have kind of the cap casualty situation of trading Mohamed Sanu, a wide receiver, for second-round pick. We're also in kind of that situation on the defense where there's a very good chance that Desmond Trufant gets traded, by the trade deadline on Tuesday.
They didn't get rid of True. I mean, they got to accept the fact that Trufant is not the corner they thought they were getting. He's a basic cover 2 corner, cover 3 that sits in the zone that can't play man-to-man.
Yeah.
And to me, he doesn't have the kind of speed to play man-to-man. And I also see the leadership. To me, the leadership of what he's supposed to do for them young guys, I don't see it. So to me, I'm getting rid of True.
Keem Cap on YouTube says bye-bye Trufant. So he agrees with you, Chuck, on that. The other thing is, obviously they're going to try to trade Vic Beasley, but even if they trade him, they're still going to have to probably pay a portion of his salary for the rest of the year. My thought here is, given what you continue not to see from him, and given the fact that, as J.J. Green said on Facebook a moment ago, you need some sort of accountability, some sort of standard to uphold here. I think if you can't trade Beasley on Tuesday, I think you've got to seriously consider just releasing him outright, just getting rid of him all the way around. Just sort of show that one way or another, there's got to be some sort of accountability for not getting the job done. And you've got to put some of these players on notice one way or another. If you can't trade Beasley, I think you've got to release him. I think you're going to be paying a salary anyway.
I'm keeping Vic, but let me tell you what I'm doing to Vic. Vic, you don't get to just rush the passer no more. You on kickoff team, Vic. You on punt team. I mean, you got to do it all.
Yeah.
So to me, your value comes in, and it might hurt your feelings. But now you got to start doing other things to help this team. You understand what I'm saying? And I hate that Comiskey got hurt. Am I saying that right? I hate that he got injured. It's time to start playing these young guys and see what you got. And to me, he's the one that stands out the most.
Mr. Tiny TT on YouTube also mentions Devontae Freeman. I think Freeman's, because of his contract, is totally untradeable. Not to say that no other team in the NFL would want Freeman, but they want to trade for him right now, just given the salary that he has. They want to cut their own deal with him if the Falcons decide to release him at the end of the season. I'm not a salary cap expert, but that's my best guess on that. Chances of Freeman being back in 2020, I think, are pretty low. I don't think Freeman's got a lot of trade value right now, though, because of the money.
Well, I ain't a personnel. I mean, I'm not a person who knows the cap either, but I know ball. I don't see the same kind of quickness. I don't see the same kind of explosiveness. I hadn't seen a 40-yard run from Devontae. I like what he did in his last couple games. Now, he's been running hard in the whole 9. Yeah. But to me, Devontae, you know, I think he's a year away. I don't know if he has that time. The Falcons are going to take that time. But with the injury he's had last year, I still think he'll be a better player next year than he is now. Fair enough. But I don't know if they're going to give him that time.
All right, we're going to hear more from Arthur Blank here in a moment, kind of setting the stage for what he might do eventually, what he's choosing not to do now. It's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite. Always a great pleasure to have the former Falcon Chuck Smith a part of the program. My name is Brandon Adams, and I want to thank so many of you for taking advantage of the great offer we've been extending to you throughout our program here this season. A chance to become an AJC subscriber, the Mark Bradley column I read to you a little earlier, the great coverage from D. Orlando Ledbetter, everything else from the AJC. You can get that and more when you become an AJC subscriber. Also a special thank you. This officially licensed, branded Atlanta Falcons cooler will be yours as a special thank you gift. Of course, the AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons. We show that by these Falcons coolers, which are your gift as a special thank you for becoming an AJC subscriber. A lot of choices for you. You can become a home delivery person for 7 days. You can get Sunday delivery. With all your options, you also get the daily e-paper delivered right there to your device. A very quick, convenient way to read the AJC each and every day and keep up with the best Falcons coverage. Website to go to, you see it on your screen, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. That's subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, and keep up with everything going on with your Atlanta Falcons with the AJC as an AJC subscriber. All right, more from Arthur Blank here, kind of pressed a little bit more. Hey, I heard what you said. Does this mean you're not firing Dan Quinn right now? Does this mean you're choosing to do nothing? And Blank had a pretty strong response back to that. Here's Arthur Blank again.
We are going to do something. We're going to continue to think really hard and evaluate everything that we can do as an owner and as a senior management team, and figure out if there's anything we can do to make some decisions any earlier or any later that would help the process. But we have no plans on making any changes right now.
So he says, just because we're not firing Quinn right now doesn't mean we're not doing, in his words, we're doing something. We're going to be doing that evaluation. As I said before, as long as that evaluation leads to a situation where it's not just firing Quinn, but it's eventually firing Thomas Dimitroff, I'm okay with that. I know, based on some of the stuff I was seeing on social media yesterday, the Falcons fans were on pins and needles after that game because they thought with the bye week looming that Quinn might get axed, and obviously fans always favor action over inaction. You said a moment ago, as a former player, you're going to be careful about calling for anybody to lose their job, and I think we all, for the most part, kind of understand that. And I think you probably understand the fans' point on this, too, of when things are going bad, don't just sit there and do nothing. Do something. Blank says, well, the thing I'm doing for now is continue the evaluation. I don't take that to mean that Quinn is safe. In fact, I take that to mean that a lot more people other than Quinn are going to be called into question here and put under the microscope. But Quinn says, for now, that's all I'm choosing to do. And when pressed on, does that mean you're not going to fire Quinn during the season at all? Blank said, I've already answered that question, not wanting to further go into details on that. So that's kind of where that is, at least for right now.
Yeah, who was that, Mark Bradley, who asked him that, or who was that?
I don't remember.
You don't know, but I think he should be asked that. I think one of the things that Arthur's, from day one, he's talked about what? The fan experience. The fan experience right now ain't quite the experience that they want to have, or the Falcons want to have. And he might be evaluating, like you're saying, Brandon, from top to bottom. This might be a part of seeing how things are going on up there, because right now, this is almost beyond ridiculous.
Yeah.
you hardly ever see NFL teams get beat like this now.
Right.
And I done been on some sorry teams. And we done got broken down. We done had our heads split. We done got slapped. We done got thrown in the garbage. But I've never seen a team with so much talent. And I'm going to tell you, they do have talent. They got little small holes here and there like we're talking about.
Yeah.
But this team does have talent. It's beyond ridiculous because there really is no true answer. But we all have a question. Why?
Yeah. Brett Smith on Facebook says, we need a smart, young, intelligent offensive head coach. I'm tired of us trying to get a defensive coach who never pans out. Imagine if we had Kyle Shanahan right now as head coach and then a good defensive coordinator to go along with that. I'm 100% in agreement with Brett Smith. The bad defense was going to get Quinn fired, but the response to this needs to be a better offense moving forward. Not Dirk Cutter and his dusty old playbook, but somebody that's going to be innovative, that's going to take advantage of the way offense works right now. Offensive line, stuff like that's never been less important in the NFL than it is right now because all these teams play fast. All these teams look to get rid of the football quickly. They allow quarterbacks to make quick decisions. And I know people say, well, you got to be a running quarterback to do some of the things that some of these coaches are doing right now. I don't think you do. I really don't. I think that you can use Matt Ryan, you can use Julio Jones, you can use now in an expanded role Calvin Ridley, beautiful two-point conversion he caught yesterday. You can use these guys with one of these newfangled offensive minds. What Brett Smith says right there is 1,000,000% what I feel like.
What did Brett say again?
He wants a young, smart, intelligent offensive head coach.
Like who?
Stinking for Lincoln.
We said Kyle Shanahan, right?
Well, he said, yeah, comparing him to Kyle Shanahan.
You know y'all need to stop this right now, Falcon fans. When Kyle Shanahan was here, y'all couldn't wait to run that man out of town after the Super Bowl. There was nobody here after that Super Bowl, I don't believe. You show me a Falcon fan that came out and said, I want Kyle Shanahan. Now we want him because he's 7-0. Y'all couldn't wait to run him out of town because he didn't do what? He made what? Had a bad second half?
But in fairness, though, I mean, there's going to be emotion. I mean, Marcus Jackson said this in our Facebook comment section before. That 28-3 thing still hangs over people's head. So that gives you kind of an exaggerated sense of Kyle Shanahan's role in that by not running the football. But from a larger sort of vantage point, it is easy to see that Shanahan's the reason why they won the NFC.
Again, there's so many variables in it. That year they had what? They were getting turnovers, right?
Yeah.
They were getting turnovers. They were getting sacks, right?
Yeah.
That was a great year for sacks. Again, you, emotional or not, even last year when Dan Quinn and those guys were struggling, you showed me some text. Y'all hit me up, info@chucksmithtraining.com. Send me a text right now where you show me, where you said during that date last year that you wanted Kyle Shanahan to run this organization, be the head coach. I'm calling you. I'm telling you right now, I don't believe y'all gonna send it. Yeah, everybody, we want Kyle Shanahan. Man, y'all killing me now because this man's 7-0. Now you want Tevin Coleman too, right?
Coleman looked pretty good yesterday. He looked pretty good yesterday.
Man.
Fast,
he is fast,
he's a fast
I love it, Falcon fans. Y'all want the best. I ain't mad at you, but
well, speaking of being mad,
man. Y'all killing me.
Jermail Mahoney's coming at me again about Lincoln Riley. He says that he's glad Oklahoma lost, and basically saying that might eliminate the desire to bring Lincoln Riley in here to Atlanta. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It doesn't change anything for me. Hashtag stinking for Lincoln is alive and well as always been.
Well, because why you putting all up on me?
That's because you get the pretty face. You get the close-up camera.
Look at they putting all look. See, he know.
I don't have a close-up camera for my stinking for Lincoln. Here's what I'm going to tell you. For would-be Lincoln Riley fans in Atlanta, Oklahoma losing to Kansas State's actually a good thing because I think that Lincoln Riley has a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than he does a national championship. I think defense matters more in college football than it does in the NFL right now because the talent gap in the college game is just wider. I think recruiting's hard, and I think the defense is hard. For Lincoln Riley, I think at some point in time when you're at Oklahoma in this age where we haven't seen a Big 12 team win a playoff game yet. Understand that. We got a 5-year history of the college football playoff. Big 12 team has not won a playoff game yet. That's Oklahoma included. So I think that pressure mounts. When you realize how hard it is to win, you start looking around. All of a sudden, if you got Mr. Blank offering you $10 million a year or something like that, taking advantage of that offer starts to seem like it makes some sense. So for me, the kind of captain of the hashtag stinking for Lincoln society here in Atlanta, pushing that move on the Falcons, Riley losing on Saturday, I believe, is a good thing. Riley losing on Saturday, I think, greases the wheels for it eventually happening.
I mean, they did score, 45 points, so it wasn't exactly like Riley completely tanked out. I like Lincoln Riley. And after I saw Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, I'd love to get some of that. Now, Lincoln Riley, I want that offense. I love what I saw Arizona doing. So I'm 100% in with Lincoln Riley. But do I think they get him? No. But that's a whole nother story.
All right, we'll talk more about that later on. Let's do more on Arthur Blank here for a moment on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by, actually, let you hear from Dan Quinn. Quinn on the loss yesterday. Obviously, there's not a whole lot left he can say at this point in time, but he did talk about the game. Here's Falcons coach Dan Quinn talking about how they want to try to find the magic of the second half and do a little bit more of that in the first half. Here's the Falcons coach, the now embattled Falcons coach.
I thought, from a team standpoint, we came out in the second half and, fought back. You certainly can't lose the turnover battle, 0-3, and expect to come out ahead. So for us, what we had talked to the team, the first half of the season is complete, and we have to come out for the second half of the season, much like we came out in the second half today. If we do that, we'll be the team that we'd like to play like. But certainly losing that turnover margin and digging yourself into a hole at the start, tough way to get started into a game.
So I said this last week, and it remains true now. Everybody likes Quinn. Everybody thinks he's a good guy, and seemingly the Falcons want to be very careful about how they let him go, maybe with good reason. But the most inhumane part of all of this is the fact that he has to be dragged out every week to do that press conference of, well, just got to go back to the drawing board, got to figure out a way to get it done. I mean, and I'm not even making fun. I'm just being honest that I can understand for now why they haven't, moved on from Quinn. I think the bigger reasons we're yet to discuss here in today's show. But the most inhumane part of this is a guy that clearly has no answers whatsoever is once again, microphone in his face, asked to provide those answers. That is a tough watch and a tough listen every single week.
Inhumane?
Inhumane.
Inhumane to a man that's making $4 million.
You know what I mean, though.
I don't know what you mean. I mean, you talk about Q like he's starving in in Sudan. He's starving. That's inhumane. Q making money. Q is living the life of a coach. He's got his dream job. So I say this. Dan Quinn, this is expected in a coach's life. Mm-hmm. Coaches get hired to get fired, and that's a cliche, but coaches know. They even talk about when we're going to get fired. Yeah. So I think Dan Quinn, he's been trained. So what you're seeing now is the transition of a coach. He was hired, and now the transition, you're seeing how a man handles himself when there's a possibility he gets fired. Because remember, this is an audition for Dan Quinn for another job. Yeah. Dan Quinn is probably going to get another job after putting himself together. He reminds me of guy from Green Bay, Mike. God, I can't believe
McCarthy?
No. I had a few hits to the head. But anyway. So basically, what he's doing is this is an audition. It's an audition for another opportunity. And I like the way he's handling it, but inhumane. I understand what you're saying, but to me, maybe saddened. Being sad is a better word. I'm sad.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of people who are sad right now. But you bring up an interesting point. By extending Quinn as long as they have and letting it go, and it keeps getting worse and keeps getting worse, and when his expertise, his side of the ball, is specifically the part that's so bad, I'm starting to wonder, because at one point in time I definitely would agree with you. Oh, Quinn's definitely going to coach again. He'll shake this off and he'll resurface somewhere. I'm starting to wonder if this isn't a Mike Smith situation all over again, where Smith eventually got another defensive coordinator job, but could not sniff anybody's head coaching job after his time was done in Atlanta. And Smith actually ended his Atlanta career with a winning record, but he could not get a head coaching job after that. I'm wondering if the way things are going for Quinn right now, he's not coaching himself out of other coaching opportunities. I mean, it's almost like it would have been better for him to have been fired sooner. That way he could have painted it as too quick of a trigger by Arthur Blank or whatever decision-making body fired him. By letting him languish as long as they have, this is his resume on display, and it does not look very good. Mike Smith's coaching career was essentially done the day he was finished in Atlanta. I'm not quite so sure by letting Quinn just kind of mosey along as a lame duck here, it isn't hurting his chances at future employment. I'm not being funny. I'm being serious.
No,
I think that Quinn is coaching in such a way that makes it seem like his best chance is to either go be a college DC or find a TV job. I don't know that Quinn's coaching the NFL again anytime soon.
Well, I don't know if the TV job's for Q. Seems like he's not that kind of guy.
Mike Sherman, by the way.
No, I'm sorry. Mike Pettin.
Okay,
Who's doing what he's doing.
Pettin.
Yeah, Mike Pettin.
Yeah, Pettin's going to coach again.
Pettin's going to coach
He's
again.
going to coach again.
So Q, there's some opportunities. Remember, Pett blew up Cleveland. He got another shot.
Yeah, he was a one and done at Cleveland,
he was
right?
One and done.
Yeah,
exactly.
now Cleveland's had a couple ones and done.
Yeah.
But I believe that Pettin's going to coach again. But the point is, Shanahan,
Q, Quinn.
the guy we're talking about now, what's his name? Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn.
I'm not quite so sure what his job market looks like after this year.
I think it looks absolutely excellent. The part about coaching in NFL is not how good you are, it's that you're in. It's your buddies. This is a true, if they call it brotherhood, coach is all about who you know. They got buddies. I mean, Q got so many guys around the league. He'll come out, he'll be and I think he's going to go right to being a defensive coordinator. Because this is the buddy system. Think about this. Dirk Cutter was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
He was a disaster in Tampa.
Right.
It wasn't like he came here on a winning streak.
No, that's right, yeah.
So you tell me if Dirk Cutter can get a job, Dan Quinn will absolutely get a job because a lot of what he's doing now, I'm telling you, Dan is smart. He ain't acting a fool. He ain't tripping. He ain't doing no Rex Ryan, negativity. Dan Quinn, I will say this about Q. He has handled himself like a coach. If you're in this situation, how you should when you want to coach again in the National Football League.
Cody Paul says Seahawks killed us with the same running play over and over and over again. He actually says over and over and over and over and over. And Cody's actual description of this is pretty correct.
Yeah.
No, that was a manhandling, just an absolute mauling.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, if you were looking to make, in lines of scrimmage are ultimately one of the Falcons' biggest problems, but if you wanted to have a game play out that accentuated that more than anything else, when it's not Russell Wilson who's beating you, and Lockett made a couple of really good catches yesterday, but when it's like this physicality on display, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's hard not to lay that right at the feet of Thomas Dimitroff. When a defensive line is just, this is not a running league anymore. But when you've got Seattle just lining it up, essentially telegraphing what they wanted to do and just mauling you, Cody's right. That was a terrible look.
The evaluation of talent, right?
Yeah.
Thomas Dimitroff, they've been trying to evaluate this talent all this time. Now, you get two hybrid defensive ends. Now, here's the biggest challenge in the National Football League that I deal with all the time. How do you make the difference? How do you judge who's a hybrid and who's a defensive end?
Yeah.
So now you end up drafting two hybrids, right?
Yeah.
Vic Beasley, hybrid. Takk McKinley, hybrid.
Yeah.
So are they able to play down? Can they play against big ball? Can they go 22 and play inside a tight end and strike blocks?
Yeah.
Well, we've learned no. Takk McKinley has shoulder injuries that he'll probably never be able to play down and play inside.
Yeah.
Vic Beasley isn't the kind of guy who can play inside a tight end and play double teams. So now they're not defensive ends. Now you try to stand them up. They can't do what? They can't stand up and strike blocks. Remember we set the edge? Because they're not athletically good enough. They're athletically challenged to stand up. So the big challenge to me is the evaluation when you look at the personnel department. So this goes a little bit deeper again than Thomas Dimitroff. You got scouts. You got West Coast scouts, national scouts. Arthur Blank, the reason why he can't ultimately blow it up, there's so many different variables in this thing that have to do with the organization, because we're talking about assistant coaches, we're talking about scouting, there are so many different things.
Yeah.
But then it all comes down to drafting the right guys. It's a hit or miss, and that's the biggest challenge that they're going to have to account for.
Let me get your thought on this, and we're going to hear more from Mr. Blank here in a moment. It's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories. Mudini Abdi, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly in our YouTube comment section, says that Deion Jones hasn't been the same since he dropped those 15 pounds. To me, I'm going to agree with the commenter on this one, Chuck. I thought that Jones did look light at times yesterday. I thought he was bouncing off plays when he had a chance to make a tackle. And I hate to say it because Jones is supposed to be one of the answers for this team, and he's still a guy that you want to keep and still a guy defensively you're going to try to build around a little bit. But yesterday was a forgettable game when it's otherwise been a forgettable season for Deion Jones. I don't think the commenter's wrong right now. Jones just looked light when called upon to stop some running plays yesterday.
Well, Deion is light, and to me, Deion to me is not the problem, but Deion's weight is part of the problem, and that affects obviously his strength. The guy's fast. So here's what I don't understand though. why have you already run the 4.34? I mean, Deion, they say ran the 4.39 at, on clock. Deion runs a 4.4. Why wouldn't you put on that weight? Even if you get up to 235, 240, you're still going to be running the 4.5. When you're fast, you're fast.
Yeah.
So I think Deion Jones, a mistake that is made. I don't know the situation. Now, here we go. We're talking about all these little things that affect the team. All right, why is he so light? Is it the strength and conditioning team? They think, oh, maybe you're better light or something like that. But to me, it's the philosophy now in the National Football League. Everybody wants speed. Everybody wants speed except them teams like in New England.
Yeah.
Them dudes, look, them dudes on that defense, they're not guys that are running 4.4s.
Yeah.
But I think the NFL has went wrong with these hybrids. Now, Deion is a hybrid linebacker. Deion could play every one of those linebacker positions out there. Now, if I was going to get into something else. If they really wanted to be effective with Deion Jones, put Deion on the outside, put Devondre inside. Devondre Campbell played inside linebacker also when he's at Minnesota.
Okay.
Who's our best cover guy? Really is Deion Jones, but Deion's a little bit light, but he done caught a few stiff arms. But the guy, he's a tough player, but he need to get up to 235, 240.
Yeah, one more point on our YouTube comment section, then we're going to move on. Georgia Gamer brings up the role that Brian Cox used to play, as we saw this on Hard Knocks. As Brian was kind of a tough-nosed football player. He seemed to coach with kind of a tough-nosed demeanor. In some respects, it seemed like this Falcons team is currently missing some of that. Do you think Atlanta now is missing what a guy like Brian Cox used to provide?
I'd say it just depends. Brian, there's certain things that players, how they look at coaches, and there's certain ways how they act. I would say this. Brian's a tough coach, and I had no problem with what Brian did as far as pushing the players. But I didn't like the fact when I seen Brian going on Hard Knocks and he called a guy Cupcake. Nationally scrutinized and embarrassed this cat everywhere he went, Cupcake. I remember he came into my gym one time, oh, that's Cupcake from HBO. So to me, Brian Cox, you were way out of line for that. Okay. But now from the tough coaching, I love Brian Cox. And I love what he was doing to those guys as far as pushing them. And you got some cats at Brian Cox, they're soft. You got guys how it is, man, they can't take certain coaching. When I was with the Falcons, and now remember this, when Bill Kolar was there, who's still coaching at Denver, and Patrick Kearney were there, right? Yeah. So Patrick and Bill didn't really get along. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but Patrick was the guy there, and this is not where Patrick didn't want to work. Bill was just verbally assaulting people. I mean, that's what Brian did, verbally assaulting people. But I definitely think I would like to have Brian there to crack the whip a little bit, but Brian Young cracked the whip too, and he ain't there, so I'm going to leave it at that.
That's fair enough. All right, let's move on here. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. More of your comments coming up on both Facebook and on YouTube. We'll also hear more from Arthur Blank on today's show as well. But let me kind of reset this. Earlier in today's show, as I'm going to try to lay out 3 reasons why, even though I believe the Falcons eventually have to fire Dan Quinn, not firing him yesterday may prove to be a good thing. Reason number 1, I said, was by not firing Quinn yesterday increases the chances, I believe, that the Falcons just fire everybody, Dimitroff included, and I think that is a good thing for the Falcons moving forward. Here's reason number 2, let me see if you agree.
Okay.
Dan Quinn has control of the 53-man roster, so he and Thomas Dimitroff are in together on personnel decisions. I think one of the biggest reasons why you don't clean house coming off of yesterday's game is because in addition to New Orleans in 2 weeks, the most important date for the Falcons right now is Tuesday. That's tomorrow as we record this show live on a Monday. It's Tuesday, the NFL trade deadline. I think Atlanta, given its salary cap difficulties, given just how much dead weight there is on this roster right now, you've already been successful in making a trade, sending Mohamed Sue to New England. Now, you got a second-round pick for him. I don't think that kind of haul is coming for any trade you make, the rest of the way through. But that doesn't mean you can't trade somebody for something. I think that Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff have a job here over the course of the next 24 hours, which is to get rid of as many players as they can, sell off. We see a more active trade deadline in the NFL now than we used to. Young GMs just more willing to make trades now, younger mindset around football. I believe one of the biggest reasons that Smith and Dimitroff are here right now is they're here to, I should say Quinn and Dimitroff are here right now. They're here to make trades before the trade deadline. Find a taker for Desmond Trufant. Find a taker for Devondre Campbell. Find a taker for someone that you can move out of here. Get something back for them. coerce someone to taking Vic Beasley. That's what they're here to do. Just trade somebody for something, reduce your salary cap burden, show some accountability for some guys who've not lived up to their end of the bargain here in a Falcons uniform. I believe that's a big reason why Dimitroff and Quinn remain employed right now. I think it's got very little to do with getting a chance to coach in a game against the New Orleans Saints. Quinn may do that, but I think it's more about the trade deadline, and you just need someone to facilitate those deals.
Yeah, you do, but I look at it a little bit different. If I'm Arthur Blank and I'm looking at these coaches and this GM that I possibly might get rid of, absolutely y'all ain't making no trades right now. Because what we want to do, I want to be able to evaluate this team in total from the guys that you put on the field. So for me to really see what's really going, if I'm Arthur Blank, I'm not letting you trade anybody. I want to see what we got. Because right now we already know that we ain't going nowhere. So the team that was constructed by these two men, Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff, let's see what we really got. So part of my evaluation is I can evaluate the team in the totality and not go and make some wholesale changes so you can say in the end, well, you know, I didn't have my guys. They got their guys now, and those are the ones they need to be evaluated.
But when it comes to like a Trufant or a Beasley, isn't the evaluation done? I mean, we know Atlanta is not better off with them. So as opposed to just cutting them at the end of the season, or in Beasley's case, what I think should happen, which is cut him post-trade deadline, instead of just doing that, getting something back, even if it's a later draft pick, isn't getting something better than eventually getting nothing in a time now where we live in an era of open tanking in the NFL, much the same way it exists in other sports. It exists in the NFL now, and we see GMs around the league willing to make trades. In a way, when you played the game, trades in the NFL were, for the most part, a rarity.
Rare.
It's not going to be as rare going forward. NFL GMs are just more willing to do that. So when it comes to guys that you don't want, and I think everyone should be of the agreement that Trufant's not part of the solution in Atlanta, Vic Beasley not part of the solution in Atlanta, Devondre Campbell maybe not part of the solution in Atlanta. There are guys that you don't want. There are a few that you do. There are a few you don't. The ones that you don't want, why not try to get something for them right now?
I agree if you can get that done, but here's what I need. I don't let it become Thomas and Dan's decision. Arthur Blank.
Yeah.
I'm Arthur Blank and I'm Rich McKay. I'm bringing in a former general manager. We're sitting down and okaying who's going to be traded. And I forgot what's the other, Scott. You came from
Pioli's gone.
Scott, okay.
Yeah.
But look, whoever's in there, the GMs are in there. Number one, I got Rich McKay. I'm Arthur Blank. I'm not letting those two guys do it without me because of exactly this deal. Because Arthur needs to be in. Arthur Blank, I believe, now needs to have his hands in everything. He knows from all the advanced scouting, all the evaluation. Arthur knows everything. So I would like to make sure that Arthur has an opportunity to be involved in that process.
By the way, speaking of Arthur Blank, let's hear a little bit more from him after the game yesterday. Kind of a harsh evaluation of the current situation, but patient at least in terms of the ultimate solution for all of that. Here is more from Falcons owner Arthur Blank as captured after the game.
It's very painful. It's very painful because not only, I'm an owner, but I'm the steward for the fans. I'm a custodian of the team on their behalf, and I feel their pain. I truly do, and I see their pain, and I understand, what they're going through, and it's bewilderment how we can play that way in the first half and completely differently in the second half, but that's kind of been typical of the year. We just haven't had the kind of consistency to win games, and whatever the reasons are, they are, but it's just not acceptable at any levels, and we have to continue to think about what's the best thing for the franchise and the team on a long-term basis, and we'll do that.
So Corey Carter, speaking to us in our Facebook comment section, says that Blank's not a football mind. He bought a team because he wanted to be famous. Let's just keep this real for 1 second. NFL franchises are expensive propositions, more so now than when Blank bought this team when he did near the turn of the century. But still, it was a $1 billion investment for Blank when he first made it, and it's even more than that now. No one buys an NFL team for any reason other than that. You are a rich person that wants a legacy. That's the story for every person that owns an NFL team, unless you were, the family like the Rooneys or something like that just inherited the thing. Everybody buys an NFL franchise for the same way. I'm a rich person who wants a legacy. Corey, here's what I'm going to tell you, though. Just practically speaking, that is something that you can use to your advantage if you're a Falcons fan. Because what you hope is is that the owner, in this case, Mr. Blank, you hope that he takes that legacy seriously to say, I've got a chance to deliver my fans what they really want, to be lionized and a hero in this city forever. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can be like Bernie Marcus and build an aquarium. You can be like Arthur Blank and buy an NFL franchise. But there's a lot of different ways you can kind of go down that road of being lionized as a city and civic hero for years and years to come. So Corey says he wanted to be famous. I would say you're probably right. This is how he views his ultimate legacy, but use that to your advantage. And I think that my prediction is that what Blank is going to do here is knowing that the time to act now, because of the fact this is a new stadium and because of the fact that there's bad feelings coming off the old Super Bowl, use that to your advantage where Arthur Blank gets aggressive at trying to solve the Falcons' problems. Better personnel decisions, better coaching decisions. The fact that Blank wants to be famous, the fact that Blank wants to build his legacy, I think is something the Falcons fans ought to want to be true, because that, to me, increases the likelihood that he works on their behalf in this particular instance.
Well, building a legacy, can I talk about that first? Home Depot. What? Arthur Blank was a speaker around the world. Think about it. This guy, he brought a Fortune 500 company. It's here in Atlanta. Arthur Blank been famous. Arthur Blank, I remember when I was in college, people were talking about this phenomenon, all this different stuff that comes with Arthur Blank. This guy's been famous. He was, look, when Arthur Blank, before he got the Falcons, you got big pockets like that. He was famous around the city. So him buying a team, of course, I'm going to move on from that because that's absolutely ridiculous. But I do say this.
But you're more famous for owning an NFL team than you are for owning
of course,
company.
we know that, but let's not act like no one knew this guy. Sure. I mean, that's like he only bought the team, so to me, that's like he was nobody, and all of a sudden he became. Oh, Arthur Blank was somebody before he bought the Atlanta Falcons. But now him, as far as not knowing personnel, are you kidding me? Arthur Blank, one of the things that he always talks about is he knows everything. And as far as he's in every meeting, he lets his guys handle their business, but he knows what's going on. Believe me, Arthur Blank is super smart. And I remember they were talking about part of the way he was going to build this franchise was the fan-friendly experience you get at Home Depot. Let's make that into the Falcons. So this guy, when it comes to personnel, he knows what. Heck, I used to see Arthur Blank down at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't exactly standing there sitting in the stands chilling with Jerry Jones. Right. He was on the field getting into the mix.
Well, let me say this. Kendrick Davis also brings this up, and then we're running very late. We've got to pick up the pace after this. But Kendrick Davis says that all Blank cares about is making money. It's not my job to carry Arthur Blank's water. He's got people that can speak and defend him on his own behalf. But on this particular instance, the idea that Blank only cares about making money, from my opinion, that's not true whatsoever. And I'll give you two examples as to why. Prior to Mercedes-Benz Stadium being built, this was a guy who was willing to invest $100 million of his own money to upgrade the Georgia Dome in the hopes that Atlanta could get another Super Bowl. That's an investment that Blank was not going to get any return on. He was just doing that because he wanted to see Atlanta get a Super Bowl. The second thing is, I think you can make a case that Blank doesn't care enough about his money. The way in which he spoke about Julio Jones, we're going to make him a Falcon for life, we're going to give him whatever he wants, that actually hurt Atlanta's negotiation position with Jones. In a salary cap league, I'd actually like for my owner from the Falcons to care a little bit more about money when it comes to hard-nosed negotiations with a receiver who's obviously trying to get every dollar he can out of you. You certainly know Blank a little bit better. He owned the team that you once played for, although not quite the exact same era on that. But the point here is that I don't believe that Arthur Blank has a history of being an owner just out for the money. There's some ownership groups around Atlanta you could have said that about and may can say that about right now. But I don't think that that's necessarily Blank's story, and I say that as someone who's not under any obligation to argue on his behalf.
Well, he didn't buy this organization just to lose money. Everybody wants to get money, but I don't think it's about him just, getting money. He's a competitor. He wants to bring a Super Bowl, and he wants to give this team every opportunity to do that. He's made the Benz fan-friendly. But let me just say this. Arthur Blank's legacy with the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is off the roof. I mean, it is even though ain't many people in there, that thing is a marvel. It is one of the best stadiums you can ever have. And what he's doing for the West Side and here in Atlanta is absolutely where it is. So regardless if you feel like he's, in it just to make money, get your money, Arthur. You can win and get your chips. Get the bag, man. Yeah. Like the young boys say, get the bag.
I hear you.
Okay, you can look. So why can't you win and make money? You can, Arthur. I hope you make as much money as you can because your contribution to Atlanta, just with the Benz alone, brings so much credibility to what Arthur Blank has done. I'm down with you, Uncle Arthur. I'm down with Uncle
I like
Art.
to hear that.
Down with Uncle Art.
It's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. I was going to play some more like Arthur Blank audio and stuff like that. We're running a little bit late on time. Let me do one more thing before we check in on scores for today. So we've heard tank for Tua. I have pushed the idea of stinking for Lincoln. I think there's a new phrase we need to add in the lexicon. I have seen the future of the Falcons on display in Columbus, Ohio on Saturday. I am now all about not tank for Tua, fall on your face for Chase. 1 in 15. If you can go 1 in 15 and get yourself in a position to draft that young man right there, Chase Young, he is a game wrecker. He is a destroyer of worlds. I'm no Big Ten fan. I'm certainly not an Ohio State fan. But I know it when I see it, and whatever it is, Chase Young is it. He will last no farther than the 3rd or 4th pick at the most in this year's NFL draft. 1 in 15 is the best chance you have to make sure you get him. You now have every reason you need to lose. Lose the rest of them. Lose them all and draft that dude right there. Fall on your face for Chase.
Okay, I like that. I might not agree with Lincoln, but let's fall on our face with Chase. I love me some pass rushers, but look, this kid is the truth. I mean, he is the truth, golly, what else can you say? I mean, you said it. What else can you say? But here's what I'm going to say. He going 1 or 2. And, let me tell you what makes it better for him right now. If you see what Nick Bosa's doing right now, Nick Bosa's right now on pace to have one of the best rookie seasons ever out of Ohio State. Yeah. But here's my problem I got with you, Chase. What you still doing in Ohio State? About this money, man. You need to go on and shut it down and just chill.
You want to do a Bosa thing?
Yeah, but he should have did it earlier. It wouldn't be right now, but he's a bad boy.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Lose the rest of your games, draft that dude, sign an offensive coach, you win 11 games next year.
What you going to do with Vic and Tack?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm going to do with Vic. Now, Tack, he's still got a chance. I'm going to shake Vic's hand and wish him well. You draft that guy right there. You have to lose them all to do it. You draft that guy right there, sign yourself an offensive coach, and admittedly, Lincoln Riley's the guy I want. You hire Lincoln Riley, you draft Chase Young. With the roster you have around them, you win 11 games next year.
I like it.
11 games.
Right next to Grady?
Yeah, that's big time.
I like it.
That's big time. All right, so that is that. We'll try to take 1 or 2 comments on this subject before we get out of here. Let's check scores before we get there. Around the league here for the National Football League on Sunday, Saints, man, they just keep finding ways. They keep doing their thing.
They're good.
Rams, of course, win 24-10. Looks like they're getting hot at the right time. Buffalo sends a message on the road Philadelphia sends a message on the road at Buffalo. Philly showing they're still alive here. Chicago looming. Eagles trying to remain a playoff team after losing to Dallas a couple weeks ago. Speaking of the Bears, kind of a surprising loss there to the Chargers. That team, offensively, they cannot figure it out.
Bears are struggling right now.
Detroit holds on against the Giants, although Giants kept it closer than the experts would have thought. Jacksonville took care of the Jets. I'm telling you, New Orleans, man, they just keep doing it. Drew Brees this time coming back. He didn't want to let Teddy Bridgewater take his job from him.
Nah, he looked good, though.
Yeah, he did. Tampa, and I know that Falcons fans aren't Bucs fans, but Tampa got robbed by the officials yesterday. Did you see that? Kind of a whistle blowing a play dead once again. Too much of that in the league this year. Look at San Francisco, 51-13. Colts may be the best team.
Real quick, Carolina, shame, but now you can go ahead. Shame on Carolina getting beat like that.
That's bad.
Got to be better than that.
I thought Carolina was going to win that game. AFC South's turning into a pretty fun league with Houston winning, Indy winning. The guarantee for the Browns doesn't work out too well. I tell you what's going to be weird. Look at Kansas City here. They're hoping to get Patrick Mahomes back soon. But the losses they're suffering with Mahomes injured, that only makes the AFC playoffs hard because they're still making the playoffs. They just may be drifting down a little bit. It becomes a problem for New England if Kansas City becomes a team that you have to see before the AFC title game.
Well, they're dangerous, but New England, I'm not picking against the Patriots.
No, not right now. You can't do that. Let's take 1 or 2 more comments. We got to get out of here on this. CJ Harris says, Chuck, are the 49ers for real? I would say you'd say yes, right?
Absolutely. They are for real. They are ferocious. Great running game, nice quarterback, ferocious defense.
JoJo23 says, take Joe Burrow, trade Matt Ryan to the Bears. Bears may trade for a quarterback, but Matt Ryan's not going to be that guy. Kendrick Davis says, y'all tripping if you thought the Panthers were going to beat the 49ers. I actually kind of like Carolina.
I didn't say beat them.
I did,
I said be competitive. Shame on you, Carolina. Come on.
Brian Rogers
Shame.
says, keep Tack McKinley. Yeah, like Vic Beasley, I have no more interest in whatsoever. But Tack with a different coaching staff, I wouldn't mind seeing the fire come on for him a little bit.
Yeah, Tack got potential. I mean, you just got to do it. You got to just, again, I agree, Tack. You can't give up on Tack right now, but I'm going to tell you what could happen. If Vic Beasley were to go to New England, I think he'd be a better player sometime in transition.
Well, sometimes that
It can happen, man.
That's the way it works out, yeah.
It can happen. It's not going to happen here. Vic's time here is gone. But I think Vic going somewhere else will give him a better opportunity to have a fresh start.
All right, on the way out the door, let me remind you, subscribe to AJC.com. When you do, as a special thank you, this Falcons branded cooler is yours. Lots of different subscription options to choose from. Stay up to date on your Falcons. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now for that. Special show coming up for us on Friday. No game on Sunday. We'll still have a really fun kind of look at where the Falcons are at the sort of halfway point of their season, bye week looming here. We'll evaluate everything. We'll kind of do it in sort of very honest, candid fashion. That's coming up on Friday for AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Chuck, always a pleasure to have you here.
It's always good to be here.
Good stuff. We'll talk to you then. AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.